flesh, etc. Invisible, supernatural. That which is born of the Spirit is spirit. John 3:6. Correct meaning: Spirit is that which inspires or motivates. Therefore, being born of the Spirit means having one's direction and intent formed by inspiration, not just natural fleshly urges. One who is born of the Spirit is inspired to follow a particular direction or pattern. His way of life reflects that which inspires him, which gave him that life. With Christians, that life is the Spirit, inspiration, of Christ and His law. In contrast, one who is born of the flesh looks only to fleshly urges to direct and define his life. His path is low and debased. But as many received him, to them he gave authority to be the children of God. Those born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. John 1:12-13. Unless a man is born from above, i.e., inspired by God, he cannot perceive God's kingdom. John 3:3. By the same token, children of promise, that is, inspired children, and not just children of the flesh, are counted for seed. Romans 9:6-8. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. Romans 8:14. War-controlled meaning: a declared conflict or prolonged public battle between one people, nation, and another people, nation. Wars are fought to preserve the peace and make the world safe. Correct meaning: the word war derives from a Teutonic root meaning to confuse, to embroil, to be in conflict. War can be waged by anyone, and between any two or more parties. Typically, however, war is expressed at the level of government. In terms of national war. In the mind of the common man, war is generally equated with all-out war, or total war, meaning to the death, or until one side surrenders. The truth, however, is that total war, real war, is never waged by advanced nations. Rather, war is regulated, controlled and usually funded, both sides, from behind the scenes by its creators who alone profit from it. Our generation of Americans have abdicated personal responsibility with regards to wars. American parents allow their sons and daughters to be sent to war, at the behest of their government, against enemies they don't even know. They invade, kill, or get killed, destroy, and loot people and communities of whom they have no acquaintance or knowledge, all because it is called war. But what war? Whose war? And why? Governments war against governments. For the benefit of those who control those governments. People don't war, they have disputes. Sometimes they even have feuds. These are settled between the principal parties in most cases without involving their neighbors. Governments, however, war against other governments by forcing innocent third-party citizens, who know nothing about the conflict and have no stake in the matter, to fight for them. Citizens of one government system are pitted against citizens of another government system. They kill one another until one government system is depleted of citizens or resources to feed the war. Like pawns in a chess game, citizens are invested, used and expended, to force one government's will upon another. Wars are between governments. They are fought, not for the people, but for governments. The people always suffer. Politicians, bankers, lawyers, and undertakers prosper from wars, and they alone should fight them. This would benefit us in two ways: 1. War would be brief, and 2. A true criminal class would diminish in numbers. In 1861, Yankee citizens were forced to kill, loot, and ravage the South so that Lincoln and his banker friends could ostensibly preserve the Union and abolish slavery. Secretly, the war architects chuckled because their real objective was not to emancipate the Negro, but to bring all races to a common level of slavery under enfranchisement and debt to these same bankers. The New World Order hated the South. Not because it had slavery, but because it had plantations, independent communities with their own economies having no need of bankers or politicians. In one stroke, the New World Order crushed the South and virtually eliminated the future threat of independent communities. Private industry could no longer achieve independence from central banking and central government. Peace government meaning, silence. Pacification. the lack of rebellion, challenge, or descent to government power. Wars bring peace by force. Christian meaning, in relation to people and community, peace means much more than silence. Governments equate peace with suppression, or pacification, also death. The classic byproduct of government forced peace. When Roman armies invaded and devastated Alba, in the 700s, Calgicus, a Celtic chieftain, stated, "They make a desert and call it peace." This statement was repeated again later by the Scots to describe the British military policy called pacification, whereby British troops invaded and laid waste to the Scottish Highlands in the 1700s. Mao Zedong correctly stated that government authority comes from the barrel of a gun. By this principle, governments, including democracies, have gotten and kept power over people and nations. Thus, this form of peace is achieved by government when it develops enough gun power to suppress all dissent, domestic or foreign. State oppression, force, and hostility bring silence by forcing the common people to live in fear. But fear is not peace. True peace requires that there be no masters and slaves, no nobles and commons, no class of men who are above the law, and no class of men systematically deprived of their natural rights. True peace is the lack of hostilities. A state which will never be achieved so long as governments continue to be hostile to free men.